Do good, Maverico here. Welcome to podcast episode number 175. Dare to stand out, challenge the herd mentality. If you never have the guts to stand out from the herd, then a lot of things is going to be a lot harder than they need to be. Oftentimes, the main thing holding us back from doing what we are meant to be doing is fear. And that fear is oftentimes being seen as stupid or weird or unnormal or unprofessional by other people. The mob mentality. Resist the mob mentality. The thing is, when it comes to a lot of things, just following the herd, just do what most people are doing. Oftentimes, it's a brilliant thing to do. Because often thinks the crowd is right. If most people are walking down the street on their legs, yeah, it's probably a smart thing to walk on your legs, you as well. Should you walk on your hands just in order to stand out and be different? No, that's probably not very smart. But sometimes the crowd is wrong. And like Hickok 45 said, most people are average. Most people are average. That's kind of stating the obvious, but it's true. So if you want to do things that are outside of the normal, if you want some kind of results that are outside of the normal type of results, then chances are you might have to do some things that are outside of the normal scope of things to do as well. Because if you only think normally, act normally, do normal things in a normal way at a normal scale, then you should not be expecting to get better than normal results, you know? Being extraordinary, being extraordinary, so it kind of means unordinary, not ordinary, you know. Dare to stand out. Now I'm talking about it when it comes to things you want to do and stuff. But it also and it also applies to things you don't want to do, of course. Like we saw in the year 2020 to 2024. I don't know if I'm allowed to say the words on these different online platforms, but I guess you know what I mean. The year 2020 to 2024, some kind of virus was spreading around in the world, and an extremely experimental injection was being promoted. And a lot of people that didn't want to take it, a lot of people that did not want to take it, they ended up taking it just out of peer pressure and not having the guts, not having the courage to stand out. Now, I'm not saying that's the only reason. There were different reasons for it. A lot of people took it because they wanted to take it. They thought it was the right thing. They were fooled into it. Some were brainwashed into it. Some were. There were a lot of different reasons. But my point is, there was a bunch of people that did it purely out of fear. Fear of being ridiculed or being labeled as something if they didn't follow the crowd and do it. So that's one reason amongst many others. And other people, some people did it for other types of fear of the consequences, like losing their jobs, losing their positions if they didn't take it, things like that. But yeah, my point is, that's just one example of when a lot of people didn't dare to stand out from the crowd, from the herd. Some people, the crowd is wrong, that's the thing. Some people, sometimes the majority is wrong. It's not always the case that what most people are doing is automatically right, because sometimes a lot of people are being deceived. Sometimes a lot of people are being scared into things, brainwashed, propaganda, fear, peer pressure, indoctrination, lack of knowledge, lack of critical thinking, lack of objectivity, you know? And I'm not only talking about the event that happened 2020 to 2024. I'm actually talking in general. You can see other historical, you can see other historical happenings where it was the case. And you can see other everyday examples. For example, when it comes to a lot of the things that are happening in the modern school system, that's one thing. That's like a 5-hour rant in and of itself. The modern school system, you have primary school, that's like 10 years. But after that, when it comes to college and high school, I think it's one of the biggest scams in the history of the world. And why are so many people still spending hundreds of thousands of dollars in student loans to get educations in education slash indoctrination. A lot of people are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on college education slash indoctrination that they don't even need. That's the thing. They're done with education. They don't even have a job or an income to show for. Things like art degrees, stuff like that. And also other things like becoming a plumber or whatever. Is it really necessary with all those years of school? No. In some cases, long college education makes sense. But I think in the vast majority of the cases, it doesn't. But why do so many people do it? Does having the courage to stand out and challenge the herd mentality, does that have to do with it? Would you really be seen as normal if after 10th grade in primary school you just decided to not go more to school? How would that be seen by the people around you? The thing is, for some teenagers, that's the right thing to do, to not go to more school after primary school. I'm not saying it's the case for everyone, because it's not. But for someone, it is. But what would happen if a 16-year-old said that was what he or she wanted to do? Would probably be, scolded, laughed, and worse things. But if that same 16-year-old decided to waste 5 years going to different kinds of schools, and then going out of high school or college and just get a regular job afterwards. Yeah, happy, that's okay. Now it's fine, because now you have wasted 5 years of your life, racked up like $100,000 in college loans. Now you can get a regular job. It doesn't make sense. Why can't some people just get the job out of primary school? Because some jobs don't require education. They don't require more education. But yeah, the modern school system is one thing. Another big thing where daring to stand out, having the courage to stand out, plays a big part. Might be the Matrix slash the 9 to 5 rat race. If you want to instead become an entrepreneur or something other than an employee in a job, then there's oftentimes a lot of societal things affecting people. A lot of people that want to do it, they don't do it because they don't dare to stand out. Now, I'm not saying that's the only reason. There's a lot of involved when it comes to entrepreneurship versus being an employee, and I'm not saying it's easy. Hey, at the time of this recording, I've not even succeeded at it myself. I'm just saying that doing something outside of the normal 9 to 5 rat race, there's often things that goes into it, and not all of it is logical. You know, not all the arguments and things going on are completely rational and logical. There's a lot of things that has to do with some kind of programming or indoctrination. Not all of it, but some of it, you know, because it's completely socially accepted to buy an expensive car with a loan where you are paying like 25% of every monthly wage for your car, just for your car payment. That's completely normal. A lot of people are doing it. But isn't that kind of risky? Because the car you're buying, which is that expensive, if you're buying it brand new, like 5 to 7 years later, once you have paid off the loan, it's going to be worth like maybe 1/3 or a quarter, like 25% of what you paid for it. So you will basically lose like 60 to 80% of the money you spent on it. You know? So that's basically, if you buy a car and you spend 25% of each monthly wage on car payments just for the loan, in 4 years, that's 100%. So in 4 years, that's like one entire yearly wage just to pay for your car. So in theory, you could take that same amount of money that a lot of people are spending on a car payment every 4 or every 5 years. If you every month you set aside that same money for the car payment, you're driving around in an old cheap car, but every month you set aside 25% of your monthly wages as the car payment, but you just set it aside on an account. If you did that, every fourth or fifth year, you could take an entire year off working on a different project, trying to build your own business or whatever. And then you could continue working on year 6, and you're basically at the same kind of income as the person that spent that money on a car. That's one way to look at it. Or if one person buys an expensive car, it's completely socially accepted. But if another person spends like half the money that another guy spent on a car, but on something that he might make money, then people start talking about risk again, even if you have spent less money than the guy that bought a car. My point is, some things are seen as risky, where there's other things that are done a lot more often that is actually more risky, and has a lot to do with what's seen as normal versus what's seen as not normal. But yeah. And in some cases, when it comes to having the courage to stand out and challenge the herd mentality, in some extreme cases, it can have to do with life and death scenarios as well. Because in some cases, the consequences of not daring to stand out can be absolutely catastrophic, you know? It's better to be seen as, sorry about the light, this computer car, annoying. For those of you listening to the audio version, I'm in my car right now, and it's like 20 years old, 15, 20 years old, but it's not old enough for me. So it has a bunch of these computer issues that annoys the heck out of me. But yeah. Yeah, the thing I was saying was that yeah, in some cases, not daring to stand out can have absolutely catastrophic consequences. So yeah, it's better to be seen as stupid than to actually be stupid or do something stupid, you know? Anyway, another thing. Well, another thing that comes to mind is side hustles. There's a lot of people having so-called side hustles these days. Some kind of business that they're building while they still have a job as an employee. That can also be seen as not normal and kind of weird by a lot of people. But the thing is, the risk doesn't have to be that big, because these days there's a lot of things you can do, a lot of businesses that can be started without spending that much capital on it, you know? And again, I'm not an expert at this. At the time of this recording, I'm not even properly succeeded at it myself. But it's a fascinating thing, you know? Because the thing is, you don't really have to make the decision of either being an employee or quitting your job as an employee and becoming an entrepreneur. Sometimes you can just do both. If you are employed in a job, you can still keep your job, but in the evenings and weekends and days off, maybe in some breaks, you can you can work on your side hustle and grow it, and you can gradually grow it to where the income becomes higher and higher. And who knows, suddenly your income from your side hustle might be like 2 to 3, 4, 5 times as high as the income from your job. And at that point, you might just decide to work full time on your business, you know. When it comes to side hustles like that, there's like thousands of options out there. But one that I find really fascinating is subscription businesses. And one of them is paid communities. You know, for my online education and community platform that I'm building, Terrific 30, one of the things that I've been focusing on lately is interviewing a bunch of real-life success stories of people that are running paid communities and making at least $10,000 in profit per month. And the fascinating thing about a paid community as a side hustle is that it is a unique business model that you can launch quickly without much planning. And it's usually a subscription business. So you're not starting from zero every month. Like if you're starting from zero in month 1 and month 2, maybe you have 5 members. Okay, but in month 2, then you're not starting from zero. Now you're starting from like 5 members. And if you're getting 10 members in month 2, hey, now we have like 15 members. Maybe some of them cancel, so then maybe you have like 13 members at the end of month 2. Then month 3, maybe you get 20 members in month 3. Okay, but then you have like 35 members. You know, it kind of snowballs that each month is building on the results of the last month. And it kind of compounds and snowballs. Because if you're selling like t-shirts online and you make $1,000 one month, the next month you're kind of starting at zero and you have to do all the things over again, kind of. A lot of the things have to be done over again to generate the same amount of sales, to get the same amount of revenue and profit. But if it's a subscription business, it's a lot more predictable and reliable, you know. So that's something to think about. And also, a really fascinating thing about paid communities is that a lot of people are basically running their paid community as a kind of cash cow, as a form of semi-passive income. At the time of this recording, I've interviewed about 12 of them, of those paid community success stories. And 2 of those people, these days, they were working less than 4 hours per week. And several of the people were working around 15 or less than 15 hours per week on their paid community. In other words, a lot of people are running them as a form of semi-passive income. That doesn't mean that it will take the same amount of few hours in the beginning to build it as it takes to manage it. But at the same time, it is the type of business model where a lot of people are doing it. So it's a lot easier compared to a lot of other business models. So if you're building it on the side while you still have a job, that's actually important. Because if it's very possible to do it in a few hours, then I guess that means it will be easier to succeed at it compared to another business model where it usually takes a lot of work, you know. Just something to keep in mind. And running a paid community, it can also be an extremely rewarding business model as well, because the amount of value that you can provide to people inside a paid community, it's pretty mind-boggling. The lady I interviewed that was running a paid community, I interviewed her like 2 weeks ago, something like that. And she got teary-eyed several times. She almost cried when she talked about how much she cares about her members. That's pretty moving. And it's also a breath of fresh air in the world of online business, because there's a lot of sketchy things going on, but there's also a lot of great things going on. So yeah. And these days there's literally thousands of niches and categories out there where an online paid community doesn't even exist. Whereas if it did exist, it would be super valuable for people to join, and they would be willing to pay for it, you know, and it could make a tremendous positive difference in their lives and in their businesses. Yeah. For some of you watching, maybe a paid community could be what you've been looking for. And if you want to learn more from those real life success stories that I've interviewed of paid community owners, you should check out communitycashcows.com. Take care and God bless.